Hello students, welcome to the lecture on public health and safety requirements, and after this lecture we will be able to learn the following objectives. Understand health and safety laws, discuss about Environment Protection Acts, understand hazard analysis, explain National Environment Tribunal Act 1995, discuss National Environment Appellate Authority Act 1997, explain National Building Code 2005. Let's start with a brief introduction. The management commitment is important to ensure the success of the safety and health program. There should be a written policy which clearly states the management commitment and approach towards establishing a safe and healthy work environment. The policy should state the organization's safety and health philosophy and structure, including objectives and goals to be achieved. It should spell out the duties and responsibilities of both management and staff. Let's start with health and safety laws. India is a growing economy, the world's most vibrant and largest democracy, and an aspiring superpower. Occupational Safety and Health (OSH) for India is a developmental tool and an empowering movement. As a result of globalization, Indian industry is exposed to the latest trend in OSH, health and safety law in India. Health and safety of the employees is an important aspect of a company's smooth and successful functioning. It is a decisive factor in organizational effectiveness. It ensures an accident-free industrial environment.
In the last 25 years, over 2,800 people have died from injuries they received as a result of working in the construction industry. Many more have suffered long-term health effects from noise, dust, and manual handling. On average, 75 people a year are killed working on construction sites. 33 fall from a height. 12 are struck by an object. 7 are run over. 7 more die after a structure collapses. 6 are electrocuted. The remaining 10 die in a number of ways. This film explains the procedures we've put in place to protect everyone who works on our sites. We all have a responsibility to ensure a safe working space. We continually review our procedures, and we've looked closely at the way we induct you on site. This has resulted in a new induction process. Your induction will consist of this short film and a more detailed look at your area of works if appropriate. You will then have a personal presentation from the site building manager, who will give a site-specific induction covering such things as the emergency procedures and key personnel. Once you've been inducted, you'll get a colour-coded sticker, which means you won't have to watch this film over and over and over again.
Indian Standard on OH&S. Management System Occupational Health and Safety demands adoption of a structured approach for the identification of hazards, the evaluation and control of risk in the organization. Hence, Bureau of Indian Standard has formulated an Indian Standard on OH&S Management System. India and International Labour Organization (ILO). India is a founder member of International Labour Organization. The principal means of action in ILO is the setting up the International Labour Standard in the form of conventions and recommendation. Health and safety law in South Australia. Health and safety laws protect all workers in South Australia irrespective of their occupation or the size of the business. OHS and W law. The OHS and W law is made up of 3 parts. All of these documents have different purposes, but failure to comply with any of them may mean that one has broken the law and one may be prosecuted.
In 2012, 192 work-related deaths were reported across Australia. The risk of assault and serious injury is high in the prison environment, an environment which poses unique risks and challenges not experienced in other industries. In 2007, whilst on duty in New South Wales, an officer was assaulted and as a result died. Work, health and safety issues affect us all. We all want a safer workplace, zero workplace incidents and injuries. We all want to eliminate risk and to return home safely to our families. For GEO, the good news is all injuries can be prevented. Whether you're a manager, supervisor, employee or a visitor, we all have a role to play in ensuring our workplace is safe. GEO is committed to a safer work environment, committed to providing information, instruction, training and supervision, committed to helping minimise danger in the workplace. As workers, you have responsibilities as well. Be conscious of correctional-based risks. Take responsibility for your safety and that of your colleagues. Follow all safety procedures. Report unsafe work practices and behaviours. Report all near misses. To do this, you need to be able to identify a hazard. A hazard is something that has the potential to cause harm to you, others, and the environment. If you identify a hazard, you must assess the risk. Make changes if possible by eliminating, substituting, and isolating. Report issues to your immediate supervisor. Complete a hazard notification form. If you are a manager or supervisor, you have added responsibilities. You must provide adequate supervision by training your staff. Confirm staff knowledge and understanding and monitor staff activities. You must assist in identifying foreseeable hazards. Ensure a safe workplace. Implement controls immediately if hazards are identified. And finally, you must keep up to date with work health and safety information. Getting it wrong could cost you and GEO thousands of dollars, personal injury, and loss of life. Can you afford to get it wrong for you or your family? GEO's goal is a safer work environment which protects people and businesses.
The Occupational Health, Safety and Welfare Act 1986. This act applies to all workplaces in South Australia and sets out the general requirements and responsibilities for OHS and W in the workplace. Purpose of the Act. The purpose of the Act is to prevent injuries and illness to people at work. Employer duties. If one employ another person in any capacity, whether they are casual, permanent, full-time, part-time, contractors or even family, one are responsible for complying with these sections. Documentation. Section 20 also requires that one prepare and maintain a policy that is a written statement of the intention to keep the workplace safe and written procedure as to how one is going to do that. Employee duties. As an employer, one should also be aware of what the staffs are responsible for. One must comply with these requirements as well. Consultation. The Act requires that as an employer, one must consult with the staff on matters relating to OHS and W. Health and Safety. Representatives, HSR. The HSRs are employees elected by the members of their designated work group to represent them to management on issues relating to OHS and W. The role of the HSR is to represent their nominated work group on issues relating to OHS and W and to work with management to resolve those issues. Election of a safety representative. If one of the employees asks for an HSR to be elected, one has 14 days to begin the process of having one or more elected.
In this lesson, I will discuss general safety rules for the workplace. First off, no horseplay. Running and throwing objects around a shop or job site is unsafe and potentially dangerous. Next, keep it clean. Good housekeeping and organization are mandatory at any job site. So that means keep your tools clean, properly maintained, and properly stored when not in use. Avoid falling hazards. Don't place tools or materials on overhead areas where they could fall and injure others. And use proper lighting. To avoid injuring yourself due to lack of light, always carry a flashlight or trouble light with you. And lift properly. Use proper lifting techniques to avoid injuring your back. And use your safety equipment. Those gloves and masks are there for a reason, so use the appropriate safety clothing and equipment required for the job being performed. And keep an eye out for any broken items or tools. Defective equipment must be tagged to inform others not to use it, and the defective items should be removed or replaced as soon as possible. Similarly, all accidents and injuries, regardless of size, must be reported to the appropriate person. And to avoid accidents before they happen, be aware of the state of your health and any changes in it. Even a minor illness can affect your sense of balance or your reaction time. And never work impaired. Impairment by alcohol or medication can greatly affect your perception and reaction time and is extremely dangerous. And if you see any unsafe conditions or safety violations, report them to your supervisor so they can be corrected immediately. By following these simple rules, you'll help keep yourself and others safer on the work site.
Let's start with the Environment Protection Acts. An act to provide for the protection and improvement of environment and for matters connected. Environment Protection Act 1986, India. As per this act, the central government shall have the power to take all such measures for the purpose of protecting and improving the quality of the environment and to prevent environmental pollution.
Zach Chad on the track, boy.
Object and purpose of the Environmental Protection Act 1986. After the enactment of the Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1974 and Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1981, it was thought that there should be a general legislation for environmental protection as well as for coordinating the activities of various regulatory agencies. Following are the objectives of EPA 1986 to implement the decision made at the UN Conference on the Human Environment held at Stockholm in June 1972, to coordinate activities of the various regulatory agencies under the existing laws and creation of an authority or authorities for environment protection, to provide for deterrent punishment to those who endanger human environment, safety and health. Environment Protection Act 1993, Australia. The Environment Protection Act 1993 provides a regulatory framework to protect South Australia's environment, including land, air and water. This legislation was the result of the streamlined integration of 6 acts of Parliament and the abolition of the associated statutory authorities. The EPA and other bodies administer the Act through a suite of legislative and non-legislative policies and regulatory tools to address environmental issues. The EPA is also active in implementing and running various programs to raise awareness and educate the public and industry of their environmental responsibility as a community. Environmental Protection Act 1999, Canadian. The CEPA Environmental Registry gives Canadians the opportunity to learn more about how the federal government administers the Canadian Environmental Protection Act 1999 CEPA 1999 and invites industries, individuals, interests, groups and others to participate in the public consultation and decision-making processes that take place under the Act. Preamble. The preambles are whereas the Government of Canada seeks to achieve a sustainable development that is based on an ecological efficient use of natural, social and economic resources and acknowledges the need to integrate environmental, economic and social factors in the making of all decisions by government and private entities. Whereas the Government of Canada is committed to implementing pollution prevention as a national goal and as a priority approach to environmental protection. Whereas the Government of Canada acknowledges the need to virtually eliminate the most persistent and bioaccumulative toxic substances and the need to control and manage pollutants and waste if they are released into the environment cannot be prevented. Whereas the Government of Canada recognizes the importance of an ecosystem approach. Whereas the Government of Canada will continue to demonstrate national leadership in establishing environmental standards, ecosystem objectives and environmental quality guidelines and codes of practice. Whereas the Government of Canada is committed to implementing the precautionary principle that where there are threats of serious or irreversible damage, lack of full scientific certainty shall not be used as a reason for postponing cost-effective measures to prevent environmental degradation. Let's talk about hazard analysis. It is a good practice to establish systematic procedures for the identification, evaluation and control of both existing and potential hazards in the workplace. Safe work procedures. Employers are encouraged to establish safe work procedure for the various types of work carried out in the hotel. Group meetings. Group meetings should be conducted regularly to discuss safety and health issues and disseminate safety and health information to staff, including contractors. Employers should provide adequate facilities for such meetings. All staff should be encouraged to participate. Daily briefs and debriefs toolbox meeting can serve as effective channels for conveying safety and health messages. Accident, incident and disease investment and analysis. Every accident, incident or disease occurring at the workplace should be investigated in order to identify the root causes and prevent similar occurrences in the future. A system should be established for reporting and investigation of any work-related accident, incident or disease. Lesson learned from the investigation should be communicated to relevant staff. Accident statistics should be collected and analyzed to identify problem areas and trends. Let's talk about National Environment Tribunal Act 1995. An act to provide for strict liability for damages arising out of any accident occurring while handling any hazardous substance and for the establishment of a National Environment Tribunal for effective and expeditious disposal of cases arising from such accident with a view to giving relief and compensation for damages to person, property and environment and for the matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. Whereas decisions were taken at the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development held at Rio de Janeiro in June 1992, in which India participated, calling upon the states to develop national laws regarding liability and compensation for the victims of pollution and other environmental damages. Whereas it is considered expedient to implement the decision of the aforesaid conference so far as they relate to the protection of environment and payment of compensation for damage to person, property and the environment while handling hazardous substances. Let's now talk about National Environment Appellate Authority Act 1997. This act was enacted to provide for the establishment of a National Environment Appellate Authority to hear appeals with respect to restriction of areas in which any industries, operation or processes or class of industries, operation or processes shall not be carried out or shall be carried out subject to certain safeguards under the Environment Protection Act 1986 and for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. bar of jurisdiction as per Section 29, Clause 1 of the National Green Tribunal Act 2010, with effect from the date of establishment of the tribunal under this Act, no civil court shall have jurisdiction to entertain any appeal in respect of any matter which the tribunal is empowered to determine under its appellate jurisdiction. National Building Code 2005. There are some important features of National Building Code 2005 as inclusion of a complete viewpoint and direction for successfully accomplishing the building projects through integrated multidisciplinary approach right through conceptual stage to planning, designing, construction, operation and maintenance stages. Provision to ensure and certification of safety of buildings against natural disaster by engineer and structural engineer. Provision for two-stage permit for high-rise and special buildings like hotels and resorts. Provision for periodic renewal certificate of occupied buildings from structural, fire and electrical safety point of view. Provision for empowering engineers and architects for sanctioning plans of residential buildings up to 500 meters square. Revision of parking requirements for hotels in metro and mega cities. The New Delhi Municipal Council Act 1994. According to the provision of this Act, the Council has to make adequate provision by any means or measures to enforce the following matters, namely, the construction, maintenance and cleansing of drains and drainage works and similar conveniences, the construction and maintenance of work and means for providing supply of water for public and private purposes, the removal and disposal of filth, rubbish and other obnoxious or polluted matters, recycling of waste water for non-drinking water use. All hotels should have two distribution lines, one for drinking water and other for non-drinking water or recycled treated wastewater for reuse. Building bylaws applicable for the development areas of the Delhi Development Authority within the Union Territory of Delhi Building Bylaws 1983 Parking spaces. The parking spaces to be provided in buildings shall be as per the recommendation contained in Master Plan or Zonal Plans and the regulation of Delhi Development Authority. Provision of lifts. Provision of lifts shall be made for all buildings more than 15 meter in height. Exits requirements. Following general requirements shall apply to exist. Every building meant for human occupancy shall be provided with exist sufficient to permit safe escape occupants in case of fire or other emergency. Every building exits shall comply with the minimum requirement of this part except those not accessible for general public use. All exist shall be free of obstructions. No building shall be altered so as to reduce the number, width or protection of exist to less than that required. Exit shall be clearly visible and the routes to reach the exit shall be clearly marked and posted to guide the population of floor concerned. All exit ways shall be properly illuminated. Firefighting equipment where provided along exist shall be suitably located and clearly marked but must not obstruct the exit way, and yet there should be clear indication about its location from either side of the exit way. Alarm devices shall be installed to ensure prompt evacuation of the population concerned through the exit. All exist shall provide continuous means of egress to the exterior of a building or to an exterior open space leading to a street. Exits shall be so arranged that they may be reached without passing through another occupied unit, except in the case of residential buildings. Water Prevention and Control of Population Act 1974. The Water Act is enacted with the objective of prevention and control of population in India. The Act aims at the maintaining or restoring the wholesome nature of water for the establishment of boards and to vest them with such power so as to enable them to carry out the purposes of the Act. The provision of the Act shall have effect notwithstanding anything contained to the contrary in any other enactment. Now in the end, let us summarize what we have learned in this lecture. The Constitution of India has also specified provision for ensuring occupational health and safety for workers in the form of 3 articles, that is 24, 39, E and F and 42. The regulation of labour and safety in mines and oil fields is under the Union list. Health and safety laws protect all workers in South Australia, irrespective of the occupation or the size of the business. These laws provide guidance on how occupational health, safety and welfare OHS and W should be managed, as well as providing a framework for prosecution if the laws are not complied with. Against the backdrop of the United Nations Conference on the Human Environment held at Stockholm in June 1972, in which India was a participant, the central government enacted a legislation, the Environment Protection Act 1986, with an objective for protection and improvement of the environment and for matters connected therewith. The Environment Protection Act was enacted in 1986 with the objective of providing for the protection and improvement of the environment. It empowers the central government to establish authorities under Section 3, Clause 3, charged with the mandate of preventing environmental pollution in all its forms and to tackle specific environmental problems that are peculiar to different parts of the country. The Water Act is enacted with the objective of prevention and control of pollution in India. The Act aims at the maintaining or restoring the wholesome nature of water for the establishment of boards and to vest them with such power so as to enable them to carry out the purposes of the Act.